Initially I knew that I wanted to go back to grad school, so I started researching, and I ended up choosing the K-State program just for a variety of reasons. One, it was online, which made it very flexible for me to still have a full-time career, but it also provided the opportunity to come on campus and network and engage with my peers and with the faculty here as well. And also just wanted to stick with a university that had a strong reputation and especially had deep roots in agriculture.
Thank you for joining us for our Agri-Pulse Washington Week in Review. I'm Spencer Chase, joined as always by Agri-Pulse Senior Editor Phil Brasher, discussing the week that was, agriculturally speaking, in Washington, D.C. And a lot of the news that unfolded this week in Washington, D.C. involves something that we've been watching for a number of months, really since the beginning of the Trump administration, and that is who is going to staff the Department of Agriculture. At this point, there is, as we mentioned last week, there is one Senate confirmed official at the Department of Agriculture, and that, of course, being Ag Secretary Sonny Perdue. But moved a little bit closer to getting some more folks in those seats here this week, as the Senate Agriculture Committee announced the people that will be considered at the September 19th hearing. We've known for a number of weeks that this hearing was happening on September 19th, but got some insight this week as to who will be considered. There were two names on the list. Steve Censky, currently the CEO of the American Soybean Association, who is under consideration to be the Deputy Secretary, and Ted McKinney, currently the Secretary of Agriculture in Indiana, for Undersecretary of Trade. Both of those nominations are expected to sail through with little to no opposition. But we do want to make note, there was one name not on that list, and that being Sam Clovis, currently working at the Department of Agriculture and nominated to be USDA's Undersecretary for Research, Education, and Economics, RE&E, as it were. Phil, kind of an interesting dilemma that is facing the White House, the USDA, and really the Senate Agriculture Committee here.
It's a tough one for the committee. Clovis is the only nominee for USDA that's at all controversial, and he's quite controversial both because of past statements that he's made and because Democrats led by Debbie Stabenow, the ranking Democrat on the Senate Agriculture Committee, don't think that he meets the qualification of a scientist to hold that position, which is, as you said, Undersecretary of Research, Economics, and Education.
Mm-hmm. And there has been, as far as the very top of the Democratic order in the United States Senate, Minority Leader Chuck Schumer calling for the Trump administration to actually withdraw that nomination. As we sit here today and record, the administration and the Secretary and the Department of Agriculture continues to stand behind his nomination, but no consideration from the Senate Agriculture Committee on the schedule.
Right. And the chairman of the committee, Pat Roberts, said today that they're still going through the paperwork, still waiting to get all the paperwork in order for Sam Clovis. However, I asked him where that nomination is, where that stands, and he said the committee will act at the desire of the president and the secretary on that. Our viewers can interpret that the way they want to, but it's still very much in the air. And we should also note that you only need a 50 or 51 votes in the Senate to move a nomination now. The Democrats before the Republicans did away with the 60-vote filibuster for nominees. So that means that if Republicans stuck together and only lost a couple of votes in their conference, they could get him through. But it could be that this nomination just makes several Republicans uncomfortable, and Roberts may just be frankly having trouble getting the 50 or 51 votes he needs. 50 votes if he has the vice president voting.
And speaking of Roberts, we do want to mention the comments that you're referring to there came after a hearing of the Senate Agriculture Committee Thursday on some nutrition programs, looking into error rates for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Not going to dive too much into that hearing. Phil's got a story up on Agri-Pulse.com for your viewing pleasure. But Phil, in conversations with reporters afterwards, he said something about the timing of the Farm Bill that we might get into a little bit here.
Yeah, he was asked about when the committee was going to mark up, start moving a bill. He said that this fall was, as he said, quote, a high hurdle. It's going to be a challenge for either committee to move the bill. There's a lot going on. Obviously, Tax reform is the top priority in both chambers, House and Senate, and that's going to be a major issue in committee on the floor. So we'll see. Also, Senate Ag Committee has these nominations to move, so they already have a lot on their table.
So Farm Bill action at this point is limited to behind-the-scenes deliberations by committee staff, committee members, things of that nature. Nothing official on the schedule in terms of a markup or floor time or anything of that nature. Obviously, we'll be covering those events when they happen. But want to wrap up this week with some action that we saw over in the House of Representatives. As the government works to fund itself, we saw some action in the House passing some appropriations bills. And Phil, anything in particular in these bills, be it spending provisions, riders, or anything like that, have much of an impact on Department of Agriculture, Environmental Protection Agency, or some of the other agencies we cover?
There's several provisions in these bills. Not much got changed on the floor. By the way, we should step back. This is the first time in years that the House has been able to move all its appropriations bills before September 30th, before the end of the fiscal year. Now, the big caveat here: the Senate hasn't been able to do this, and we're not going to get see a fiscal 2018 big appropriations bill for the entire government until December. But the House did make some progress, and they made it without any major changes, any major amendments that would have attacked farm programs and that type of thing. So, and that's something that always, whenever the USDA appropriations bill gets to the floor, it always makes people and folks in agriculture nervous, because it's the time when critics of the farm programs can go after sugar, crop insurance, all of these things. Republican leadership made sure that there was a fairly limited scope to the amendments that were brought up, and in most cases they're fairly minor. A couple of things on the school lunch program, things in rural development, but no major amendments that got through on the floor.
So as we move into next week, obviously we'll be keeping our eye on that Senate Agriculture Committee hearing on the confirmation of USDA officials. Also worth watching some consideration of the North American Free Trade Agreement, another round of negotiations going on there in Canada, and so that'll be something that we'll be following as well. But I think that's going to do it for the news and events of this week. Certainly appreciate you stopping by, but for Phil Brasher, I'm Spencer Chase. Have a good one.